and welcome to Front Row Racing's track guide for Japan. Or should that be Konnichiwa? No, me, I've probably got that wrong now. Anyway, track guide for Japan. As per usual, these track guides are aimed at those who are struggling rather than those who are already pretty quick, although some people who are quick do find these useful because it teaches you how to not cut corners. Anyway, the Suzuka circuit is not the most difficult, but it's not the easiest either. The key points around here is you need a car that goes where you want it to go. So you need a car that turns in, and you need a car where the rear of it does what you need it to. You need a stable car. So your aeros are quite important here, but so is the rest of your setup. Setup is crucial. And in conjunction with that, how you drive the track is paramount as to whether you can get good lap times or not. Now the tyre wear around here is usually quite bad, especially on the front tyres, which is not surprising given Sector 1 with the knuckles as it's nicknamed. So if you're in a race, the racing line that you use and how you drive the track is going to be very, very important. Now these track guides, obviously I'll do a detailed corner by corner guide, so if you're struggling on a track, these will help you, or if you're just struggling on one corner, again these are there to help you. So now that we've just about got the warm-up lap done, I'll introduce myself because I've not done that yet. I'm Front Row Racing DP, and our good friend Ted Craftsticks is with us as per usual, here to point out the obvious, the not so obvious, and the clearly blatant. So there we go. Right then, Suzuka, Japan, turn 1. In the old cars, you'd approach this corner, DRS wide open, go round turn 1 and then brake for turn 2. You can't do that on this in these cars. They just can't handle it. And proof of that is, I'm now going to insert a clip of what happens if you go around this corner with your DRS wide open. Okay, so now that you've had a look at what happens if you go around the corner with the DRS open, it becomes a drifting competition, you can see that it can't be done. So the question then is, how do we take turn 1? Well, it's not actually very difficult at all. Basically, you've got two choices. Well, three choices. 1, do nothing and spin like you've just seen I did. 2, close the DRS manually, pressing the DRS button. Or 3, dab the brake and that'll close your DRS. The thing is though, you don't really want to dab the brake because that's going to mean you're braking before turn 1, and you don't need to. You don't want to be braking until you're past turn 1, so you'll just be slower. So don't go for that option. Just close it yourself. It's the easiest way, it's the quickest way. It makes no difference whatsoever to your speed, your car, or anything like that. But if you don't do it, obviously you're going to spin out. So the question then is, when do you do it, or when is the best point to do it? Well, personally, what I've been doing is, you've got the white line here that runs down the track. It's the pit lane exit line. Well, as you get towards the end of this pit lane exit line, close the DRS. So we are now getting to the end of it, and you'll see DRS now closing, and that's timed literally just before the turn-in point for turn 1. So it works very, very well doing it at that particular moment. At least it does for me. Okay then, turn 1. Very, very simple corner, but it is obviously the approach to turn 2. So how you take turn 1 will dictate how you take turn 2. And as I said, you don't want to be braking for turn 1 because you don't need to. And if you are braking for turn 1, don't. Do everything you can practicing taking it flat out, because if you can't take it flat out, you're either doing something wrong with your setup or you're simply just driving it wrong. For those pad users out there who complain about lazy steering, alter your setup so your steering isn't lazy. It's Very simple, really. Okay, so turn 1. Get to the end of the white line, close the DRS, and then as you get to the 50-metre marker board, you can see we are now turning in. Now I'm turning in a little bit before the 50-metre marker board, and that's because I like to take a nice tight entry into turn 1. Now I'm going to play it full speed actually, because I've not done that yet. I'll play it full speed around turn 1 and turn 2 because they are both connected. So here we go, and you'll see that I take a nice tight line into turn 1. And that obviously leads into turn 2. Okay, so now you've had a look at full speed. I apologise about that little cockle. To be honest, it's because my camera stopped recording and I hadn't noticed, so I've had to re-record this bit. So I'm either going to repeat myself or forget to say stuff that I wanted to. Okay, so turn 1. Don't be afraid of turning in nice and early and get up close and personal to the apex curb. You don't have to get on it, and really you don't want to get on it because it can unstable the car. But once we're in this position, we're next to the curb, we've taken a nice tight entry, and this can make all the difference to what happens at turn 2, because the further over to the left you are here, the further over to the left you're going to be just here, and that is vital. You do not want to be on that curb ahead of us or on the left of that curb, and obviously the wider you are at this point, the wider you're going to be further on. Knock-on effect. Okay, another advantage of being next to this curb is you can use it as a marker. So as you approach the end of the curb, you can start easing off the throttle, slight dab of brakes, and then start your downshifts. And do your downshifts quickly. The sooner you can slow the car down here, the better. Although you do not want to be using a lot of brakes here. You do not need to. And if you do, you're going to be so slow around turn 1, it'll be redonkulous. Yes, I did say redonkulous. So yeah, don't use too much brakes here, although you do need to make sure you get the car slowed down. So, I mean, you won't be able to see the dashboard too well, but down through the gears we go, drop in the speed, and we've now let the car run out all the way to the left hand side. And this is what I was on about with turn 1. The tighter you are to turn 1, the better situation you'll be in here. If we'd have been a car's width over or away from the apex curb at turn 1, we'd be on this curb or the AstroTurf, and you do not want to be out there. You'll see as well that the steering is still turned, because turns 1 and 2 is essentially one big corner. Now you need to make sure you get the car slowed down enough, so as we approach on, we're going to go down to 3rd gear. Once you're in 3rd gear here, ideally you should have your car perfectly positioned at the right speed to make this next corner. The next crucial part is, when do you turn in for it? Well, like I've said, it is one big turn in, so there isn't really any marker that I can say turn in at this point. You're going to have to judge that one for yourself, depending on your ability and your setup. However, I would say make sure you're turning in way before the end of this curb. Now, I don't get turn 2 absolutely spot on here, but I've kept it in to just back up what I've just been saying about getting to an apex curb. For turn 2, again, you want a nice tight line around turn 2 and get up close and personal to the curb here. You don't necessarily want to get on it, but get close to it. Now on this occasion, I missed the curb by about half a car's width at the pinch point, the apex point, which is just about here. Now, it's not a big gap here, but it's a big enough gap that's going to have a knock-on effect. And also, once I'm at this point on the track, you want to be on the power again. You want to be driving through turn 2, not slowing down through turn 2. It makes a massive difference doing it one way and the other. I mean, for example, you could easily come much further around turn 1 before slowing the car down, but it means you'll be so slow here, a farmer and his donkey will walk past you rather than you being quick around a corner. Okay, so once we're in this point, we can keep the throttle on, we can start accelerating. The steering's going to come off a little bit because the more throttle you use, the straighter you want the front wheels. But here comes the knock-on effect from being half a car's width away from the apex curb. it means that we end up on the exit curb, and you do not want to be on this exit curb. It can be used, but you're better off not being on it. And this distance between the middle of the car and that tyre is literally the distance that was next to us between the car and the curb at turn 2. That half a car width over means we stay on tarmac, means we can be much more aggressive on the exit of the corner. So that's why I'd say at times take a slower entry into a corner so you can position your car correctly so you can be much faster on the exit. Okay, so that's turn 1 and turn 2. I'm going to pull it back and we'll have a look one more time at full speed. What I want you to do is listen to the throttle usage and how quick I do the downshifts. You'll also hear a tyre squeak, and that's at the realisation that, okay, we've carried a little bit too much speed, we need a bit more brake. If I'd have done it absolutely spot on, that wouldn't have happened, and I made the apex of turn 2. But here we go. Quickly down the gears, back on the power, and away we go. We're now going to go at full speed through these next 4 corners, because these 4 corners are all connected one to the other. How you take one dictates how you take the next one. And to be honest, Dunlop curve just here, that is also connected to these 4 corners as well, but we'll get to that one in a moment. Now these 4 corners, they're known as the S-curves, that's their official name. However, they are more commonly known as the knuckles, that's their nickname, because on a track map it does look like a set of knuckles or knuckle duster, but there we go. Okay, so turns 3, 4, 5 and 6, as I've mentioned, are all connected one to the other. And any mistake you make at this first one is going to get worse for the second one, even worse for the third one, even worse for the fourth one, and then at Dunlop, it's going to bite you. So you need to make sure you get your entry right in this first corner, and then you drive the rest of the corners right. Sometimes it can be more beneficial to take these corners slower than they can be taken, just to make sure you stay on the track. And this is where your car setup is vital. If your car cannot handle these corners, it doesn't matter how fast it is in a straight line, because you're going to lose so much time here, you'll never make it back up. Sometimes it's worth losing that extra 1-2 mile an hour on the straights so that your car can handle these corners. For example, using a slightly higher aeros. But there we go. Okay, so on approach to turn 3, get your car over to the right hand side of the track as far as you can. The further over to the right, then the better an entry you can have. I don't really always use all of the track there, because I'm more focusing on looking at the apex than looking here. It's very easy to look at this point of the track and miss the apex, so you just kind of have to judge how far right you go. There is no point for me to mark out here, turning at this point. You're going to have to go on judgment and practice, but your aim for this turn number 3 is to take it in 5th gear, absolutely flat out, and get 2 wheels on this apex curb. If you're missing the curb, you need to turn in earlier. If you're cutting the corner, you need to turn in later. Okay, so on approach, we're turning in 5th gear, absolutely flat out. Like I say, we want to get 2 wheels on the curb. You have to get the maximum out of these corners. Use all of it, but make sure you've still got 2 wheels on the road. And then what you do here now is vital. What I do is, at the end of this curb, I knock it down to 4th gear and stay flat out. No ease off, no lift off, no brake, nothing. Just knock it down to 4th gear. Once you're in 4th gear, stay in 4th gear until you have got past turn number, well, it's not turn number, but the 4th part, until you're getting to Dunlop. Stay in 4th gear. It doesn't matter how slow you have to go, unless you're coming to a stop or you're in the gravel. If you're on the road, stay in 4th. Makes the car a hell of a lot easier to drive. And then this now is all about rhythm. So we get to the end of the curb. You can just see now we're down into 4th gear. And to be honest, through this whole section there is no turning points that I can give you. You're going to have to go on your own practice. But what I can say is you can take this right-hander flat out in 4th gear if you can't alter your setup or the way that you're driving. Again, use the curb. It's there. Use it. Obviously don't cut the corner, but use it. Once we've got the second part done, we're heading over towards the exit curb now. Now the exit curb, ideally you do not want to get on that, because to be honest you want to get a bit further over to the right hand side. But for me, that exit curb is there for a whole different reason. It's not there to be used, it's there to be as a guide as far as I'm concerned. And this is all part of the rhythm of these corners. Curb ends, curb starts. You want to ease off in this bit. If you do not ease off where there is no curb there, you're going to struggle on this corner and you're going to go off on the next one. So in this gap of the curb, ease off. You watch the revs, they're dropping off now as I turn in. They're still dropping off a little bit and we're turning in. It's because this corner's a little tighter than the previous one and the corner coming after is even tighter, so you can't take as much speed through it. However, again, use the curb. This one has even got a little bit of green bit, which I would say if you can, use it. Just make sure you've still got 2 wheels on the track. Someone's texted me. Now through this corner, obviously we had the ease off where there was no curb and we're back on throttle where this curb is on the left hand side. So no curb, ease off, curb on the throttle. And then you want to use a similar process. You need a very big ease off before this next corner. Now I'm still on the power up to this point, and that's because I've sacrificed the exit of the corner. I've now got my wheels straight and I'm going to do a big ease off. This is the preparation for this corner. This corner is much tighter than the previous 2 or 3. Two. It's much tighter. It's also off camber and it's very easy to lose control here. The previous corners minimum apex speed, I'm trying to think, is about 130 mile an hour. For this one you're looking at about 110. That just shows the difference. Anything higher than that you're doing okay, or you're going to be crashing at the Dunlop. Okay, so big ease off at this point. Turn it in and get close to this apex curb. You need to. The closer you are here, the further away from the edge of the track you're going to be around the corner. Now as we're going around this corner, you don't want to be full throttle, but you do want to be on the throttle. Carry the speed, keep the grip, keep the traction, keep the tight line, and stay away from the left hand side of the track. You see, if we'd have gone flat out round here, we'd be in that gravel over there. And that gravel's there for a reason, to catch those people that go flat out through this bit. Okay, so once we've got that corner out of the way, you can see we're nowhere near the edge of the track because we need to sacrifice the exit to get over to the right hand side for Dunlop. Okay, these 4 corners then at full speed, and listen to the revs. Big ease off, holding the revs. Now we can get on the power. Now Dunlop, and we can be aggressive around Dunlop. Okay, we've gone a little bit wide, but that's not too much of a problem. In the previous cars, in the 2013 cars, Dunlop was an evil corner. And the reason being was the cars had so much grip and so much speed that if you didn't have a big ease off here, you wouldn't get round that corner. These cars are different. They're slower, they have less grip, which means you're approaching Dunlop at a slower speed, which in turn means you can take it much, what appears to be much faster than the previous cars. It's not faster, it's just that you don't have to ease off anymore. Okay, so once you've done the previous 4 corners, you sacrifice the exit, start moving over to the right hand side of the circuit. We're in 4th gear and we're turning in already. Again, there isn't really any marker point I can give you for turning into Dunlop. You're going to have to go on practice. If you are going constantly wide here, try turning in later or do the ease off. The ease off will save you always. If you don't do it and you're going off, try it. It is a saving grace. Me personally, I'm not having to ease off. I can just turn in 4th gear, upshift it into 5th and go for it. Don't be afraid here. Be aggressive and go for it. See what your car's capable of. Obviously we're right up next to the apex curb. Don't get on that one though. It has a tendency to try and spin you. On the exit, be careful of when you let your steering off, because really, as I'm sure you all know, you don't want to get on the exit curb. Actually, there's a split moment there. You see, I'm usually quite precise with my steering. And if you watch the wheel, we turn left, we let the steering off a bit. No, we don't, we turn it more. You see, that little turn left then was, I know I'm going wide. And even so, we still end up going a bit further wide, but we can manage it just. If we were touching this bit of gravel, there's a good chance we're going to jump this road here. You don't really want to be that far out wide, but again, let's look at how close to the edge of the track. I mean, okay, I am close to the edge of the track there, so I would suggest I've probably ran a little bit wide there because I've perhaps turned in slightly too soon. If I'd have turned in, say at this point, the end of this light patch, I probably wouldn't have that wide moment. Or if I'd have perhaps just kept the steering turned in a bit more on the apex of the corner. But either way, we don't suffer too much for it. If you do think that you're going to be heading off wide though, get on the brakes, get on the downshifts and save the car. Because once you get in that gravel on the right hand side, see at this point I should have turned more. Yeah, once you get in that gravel on the right hand side, there's not a lot you can do about it. Okay, now we are at this point. We all know what happened here at the official F1 Suzuka Grand Prix last season, where Jules Bianchi had his nasty crash. So let's all take a moment, bow our heads, send him some praise and hope that he does recover to the best of his ability. Okay, now obviously for Jules Bianchi, Suzuka is going to be a place that he may have huge regrets about. But then you talk to many a racing driver, old or young, they know that motorsport is dangerous and that's why they do it at racetracks, not on the streets. And I mean, even Lewis Hamilton said a few years ago, I think it might have been on Top Gear, he's got no intention of dying in a race car in F1, but if it did happen, at least he'd be happy when he died. So there we go. Okay, so Dunlop then at full speed, and then we're on to two fantastic corners, the Degnas. Okay, we can still be aggressive round there, and then we're on to Degna 1, which leads into Degna 2, and I'm pretty much sure all of us at some point have been in that wall. So Degna 1 and 2, what's the deal here? Well, obviously a lot of people take this first one absolutely flat out and cut the corner by either by an inch or a mile. But it doesn't matter if you cut a corner by an inch or a mile, it's still cutting a corner. And hopefully you know what I just did there. Yes, Fast and Furious link. Yeah, don't go cutting this corner. You can do it without cutting the corner. Admittedly, you can't do it absolutely flat out in 7th gear without cutting the corner, because if you do it absolutely flat out in 7th gear and take the corner properly, good chance you can end up wide, unless you've got enough aeros to do it. But this is why, personally, I want to see people taking this corner properly. This is where ability, car setups come into it. Anyone can cut this corner flat out, that's easy. What's hard is taking it flat out, getting the corner done right, staying on the road and getting the car slowed down for the next corner. That's where skill, ability and all that kind of stuff comes into it. Anyway, whinge over. For this corner, process is actually very, very simple. You've got the 100 metre marker board. What I would say is, when you get to the 100 metre marker board, tell yourself to downshift. That way, by the time you actually have downshifted, you're going to be next to this flags post. It's actually a light. That's where you'd have a yellow flag flashing or a green flag flashing or safety car sign flashing. So you'll see here, mentally I'm thinking, okay, 100 metres, we'll downshift, we're in 7th, keeping the throttle on full. However, by the time that we do it, we're at the marshal's post and next to this black mark, and there we go, the downshift has now been done. So it takes those couple of metres for the brain to tell the fingers to do it. Once we've got the downshift done, be careful of going too far left like I have done here. I've got it on the grass a bit, you don't really want to do that. And then your turning point for this corner, I mean ideally I'd have still been on the road, get as close to the 50 metre marker board as you dare and turn it in. You have got a saving grace here of tyre marks on the road. Don't be afraid to follow them, or at least this first one on the right here. Aim your car at the corner and try and get 2 wheels all over the curb, and you'll see here, middle of the car, bang on the white line, taking this corner perfectly. No issues, no problems, no corner cuts, no problems whatsoever. Now it's all about the exit. We're still flat out and there's a good chance that we're going to get on this curb on the left hand side. Now if when you're practicing you get on this curb and your car spins, check your ride height. The lower your car, the more curbs affect it. Although at Singapore it doesn't really seem to make much difference what you do with your ride height. But anyway, now that we've got Degna 1 out of the way, Degna 2. And Degna 2 is a tricky little corner, because really this here is the braking zone for Degna 2. And for me the ideal way to take Degna 2 is to have got the car slowed down and power all the way through it. It's the way I've always taken it, rather than be slowing down around that corner. You can gain so much time by being on the power through that corner. However, what you don't want to do is apply the brakes while you've got a wheel on the AstroTurf or on the curb. So once you've exited Degna 1, you need to get the car back on the road, and you'll see my revs have now dropped. If you didn't see it, there we go. That's not me on the brakes, that's me lifting off. Once the car is on the road, now we're on the brakes, get the downshift done to 3rd gear, and then when you get to the end of this curb, turn in. At this point now, the car is perfectly set up to take this corner. We're at the right speed, we don't have to slow down anymore. All we need to do is make sure we're going to actually get 2 wheels on this curb and drive through it. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We turn it in, we can see we're going to make the curb, we can let the steering off, we can apply the power. Be careful that you don't cut this corner though, that is borderline ETL, but we can power it all the way through this corner. And because we're on the power through the corner, we can be safe on the exit. Doesn't matter if we use this curb, we're already going quick. If you're on the brakes still by the apex of the corner, you need to either take Degna 1 a bit slower or brake earlier for Degna 2. Late braking into Degna 2 will never gain you time, because you'll lose out at this point. Okay, so full speed then for these 2 corners. See, we're on the power and away we go. Now turn 10, it's only a kink, we'll go flat out. Into turn 11, the hairpin. Very tricky corner, this one. Pad users may not struggle as much on this corner as wheel users. Wheel users, you are going to struggle down to the traction. So you're going to have to work out a way to take this corner at maximum speed with minimum wheel spin. Now it's not taken me too long to do it, but it's all about your throttle usage really. And I've mentioned it before. If you can keep the throttle on a bit while you're going around a corner, it makes application of throttle much easier to do. So if you do use a wheel, definitely practice that. There'll be times where I'll say ease off and it's a full ease off, and then there'll be times like here where yes, you need to slow the car down, but you need to keep a little bit of throttle on as you go around the corner. Okay, So what do we do for the hairpin? Well, it's quite simple. We've got the curb on the right hand side. You do want to get up nice and close to it, but don't get on it. If you're on this curb, there's a good chance you're going to be on the dirt, and you do not want to brake on the dirt. Okay, so as we go round the corner, we go just past the curb, and you'll see the revs have now dropped. This is where we're easing off, and we're now going to apply the brakes. Don't be afraid of braking hard here, but make sure the car is in a straight line, and you'll see that the edge of the track actually changes direction just here. I'm not at the edge of the circuit here. I don't want to be, because the circuit straightens up. I want to be at the edge of the track just over here. So we get it braked in a straight line down to second gear, and then your turning point, again, it's another sort of judgment zone, but if you do need some help, as the curb on the left hand side is about to go out your screen, turn in. You've also got tyre marks to help guide you, and marks on the road usually are a bit of a guide, but there we go. Don't turn too much if you're on a wheel here. The more you steer, the more chance of wheel spin or oversteer. However, do try and take a nice tight line. You don't really want to get on this apex curb. I mean, I've clipped a wheel on it. Anything more than that and you're going to kick the rear of the car out. We're still holding the throttle, and then as the wheel straightens up, we apply a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and then once we're in a straight line, we know we can go. Very simple, not really simple to get absolutely right every single lap, especially as your tyres start to wear. Okay, full speed then. You can hear the throttle usage there, and then aggressive on the exit. The R200 corner, as it's known, be careful around there. There's a lot of places where I tend to look in my rear view during a race to see where cars are behind you. A little tip. When you exit this hairpin, either look in the rear view mirror at this point or after this corner, because if you look in the rear view at this point, you're gonna go off just here. Very easy to do, but very easy to not do as well. Okay, be straight as you can and as smooth as you can around these two corners, absolutely flat out. And you'll notice I didn't really use all of the road on the left there, but we do want to be close to the curb on the right hand side here. We don't need to let the car drift over to the left on the exit. We need to sacrifice the exit because there's a left-hander coming up. You know, the corner is the beginning of Spoon Curve. Okay, two corners that again are connected. How you take the first one dictates how you take the second one. So I'm going to play it at full speed. No real dramas and taken quite quick. Now, Spoon Curve is a corner that if your setup's wrong or you're driving wrong, it can be the most horrible corner on any racetrack. Although, if you work out how to drive it in a decent way and your setup can handle it, it's a brilliant corner. Because what happens here dictates how quick you go down the straight. And if you're following someone, just by being behind them can put enough pressure on that they balls up this corner and you can get past them on the straight. Okay, so what do we do for Spoon Curve? We'll get the car over to the right hand side of the track, but do not get on the grass. If you get on the grass, it's game over, you're going to be spinning. We've got the 100 metre marker board on our right hand side here, and what we want to do as we get to the 100 metre marker board is get down a gear. Once we're down into sixth, apply a little bit of brake, and I do mean a little bit of brake. We want to eventually get down into fourth gear, which we are. And at about 75 metres now, we're beginning to turn in. Now, there isn't really any particular point I can mark out for you to turn in. I can only say practice, see what you can do. For me, it is about 75 metres. Now, the apex curb is another curb that we do want to use. The perfect line is being on that curb. The further away from that curb you are, the further wide you're going to be mid-corner and then the more difficult the second part of spoon is going to be. So once you get to this apex, you should already know whether you're going to make the next corner, and that's where practice and practice come in very, very handy. Okay, what I want you to do now, on the left hand side of the screen we've got a DHL sign over there, and to be honest there's 4 of them, so I'm going to call them DHL1, DHL2, DHL3, and you've guessed it, DHL4. Now I'm doing that because you can use those DHL signs, and I don't mean go ramming into them and putting blocks of polystyrene all over the road so your rivals can't actually drive anywhere. I mean use them as markers. Okay, so as we approach the corner, turning in nice and early, get onto the apex curb, and as we can see now we've got DHL1 coming up. We're still, I wouldn't say slowing the car down, but we're not speeding up at this point. However, when you get to DHL1 you want to be on the throttle. When you get to DHL2 you want to be off the throttle. Now we're letting the car run out wide here because we need to. DHL2 is now to the left of us and we've eased off. We're in 4th gear. We're going to have to go down to 3rd gear, which we have now just done. Again, I can't really give you a turning point here, there's no marker, I just do it on instinct, but make sure it is way before the end of this curb. DHL3 is now approaching. That's our on throttle point, the point where we want to be speeding up again. And this curb we want to use it but not too much. Take too much of this curb you're going to struggle. So DHL3 we've passed, we're on the power again, but be careful, you kind of have to be cautiously aggressive through this corner. Too much throttle, you kick the rear out, not enough, you're just going to run wide. Your steering again is vital. Too much, you're going to spin, not enough, you're going to run wide. It's very much a practice and learn corner this. Okay, now we're approaching DHL4. And there's a good reason it's called DHL4, because that's the point we're really back on the throttle, and we're now up into 4th gear. There we go. The DHL sign, it's off the screen, but it's on our left. We're up to 4th gear. Now it could be very easy to stay in 3rd gear much further down towards the exit curb, because there's a curb down here which they say that if you're on that curb on the exit, you've taken the corner properly. It's very easy to still be in 3rd when you're on that curb. Don't. With the nature of this corner, don't be afraid of getting up to 4th as early as you can. But obviously if you do it wrong you could lose control of the car. So smoothness and cautious aggression through spoon is what's going to give you a lot of speed and lap time. Okay, so we'll play it through at full speed and just listen to what I do with the car as we approach DHL 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so I'll pull it back a tiny bit more. So we're approaching the 100 metre marker board, we're going to knock it down to 6th. Get to the DHL, speed up, DHL back off, DHL speed up, DHL 4, and we're flat out in 4th gear. Okay, I was talking then so you may not have heard properly, so I'll play it through one more time. And away we go. Okay, now we head through the woods, up the hill towards one of the most famous corners in the motor racing, the R130, and it's an easy corner, a very easy corner. Unless you're playing GT6, you should never have an issue with this corner. Approach it absolutely flat out and stay to the right hand side of the track. As we approach the corner, let's see where I turn in. Well, there isn't really much of a marker point, but then this, well, I suppose 50 metre marker boards on the wall there. You got the shadow here of the UBS sign. I know on the last version's track guide there was a Santander sign just down here, I think it was, which was the turn-in point, perfectly placed. I'd say this UBS one is probably a little too soon, although I know I don't really clip the apex curb here, but it doesn't make a massive difference on this corner, because what's more important for this corner is do not steer too much. The more you steer, the more speed you lose. So you need to be smooth, and you don't need to steer a lot. Just keep an eye on the wheel as we go round the corner, and that's pretty much it. That's all the steering. Oh no, we are going to apply a little more, but that's it. We don't need to steer a lot for this corner because we're going so fast. The downforce is working. We've got the grip. It's an easy corner. 195, 196 mile an hour, easy. You can even have two cars go side by side through this corner, easy. It's not a difficult corner at all. However, the two we're approaching now, Casino Triangle as it is known, they can be two very tricky corners, followed by the final corner, which has a nasty big ass bump in the middle of it, which can unbalance the car so much it's unreal. And I will admit that bump seems to get bigger and bigger every season, every new game. The effect that bump has does seem to be greater. However, you pad users, you're probably not going to notice the bump because it makes no difference to what happens to your car when you're on a pad there. On a wheel, you go over the bump, you lose all rear traction, and the car tries spinning out on you. Now, it may not look like that happens much to me on these laps, but that's because I'm driving around it. On a pad, you could just gun it flat out and not worry. Okay, so what do we do for the Casino Triangle? Actually, I've just got a message coming through. I need to back it up a little bit. Nope. I can't see what they're on about, so we won't worry about it. Although I have just noticed there's a hanger over there. I wonder where they've nicked that from. Okay, so Casino Triangle. What do we do? Well, it's very, very simple. We've got the 100 metre marker board on the left hand side. As we get to that, hard on the brakes and quick down the gears. The later you brake here, the more trouble you're going to have. So don't mess about. Get it braked at the 100 metres, get it down the gears, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. If you're in 3rd gear, by the time you get to the 50 metre marker board, you're doing a fairly decent speed to be able to take these corners at. If you're still braking and slowing down closer and closer to this corner, you're going to lose time and speed through the corners. You're going to be recovering the car instead of driving through these corners, and you do want to do that. Be on throttle and drive through these corners. Okay, so we go past the 50 metre marker board. We've done our last downshift, 2nd gear. We're using all the road, but we're having to turn a little bit because the road turns a little bit, and then it's all about where do we turn in. Well, we've got the marks on the road. You can follow those. If they aren't there or you're struggling, the only other thing I can really point out for this corner is on the wall on the left. You got red, white, green, UBS signs. At the start of the UBS signs, turn in. The first part of the Casino Triangle, you do want to use the curb. Now at this point, because we've had the car slowed down, we're in 2nd gear already, we can be back on the throttle at this point. Use the curb, staying on the road though, 2 wheels still on the road, but we were able to use the curb on throttle. Then we're going to need to have a little ease off. I mean, we're still speeding up at the moment, but now we do the ease off, turn in nice and early, and again use this curb. We've still got 2 wheels on the road, but by using that curb it can help your lap time, but don't cut the corners. On the exit, be a little cautious but also aggressive. You want to be speeding away from these corners as quick as possible. Up into 3rd gear. Once you're in 3rd gear, flat out or not is going to depend on your car. You can see I'm still in 3rd gear, but at this point we're approaching the bump. We're now up to 4th gear, and here is the bump. This is where your car's going to go light and the rear's going to kick on you. One way I've been working to get around it is, the ideal racing line is here, this dark patch. If I try and stay on that, the rear kicks out. If I keep a straighter line, a wider line, I can go faster. And that's because the wheels aren't turned as much. I'm not trying to turn around a tight angle. I'm allowing the car to have the grip to take the speed. So I've mentioned it before, racing lines, especially on-game racing lines, are only guides. They're not always necessarily the fastest way around a corner. It's just a guide. I would always advise, find your own line around a corner. You may be surprised, you may be able to go faster. Okay, I've just spotted something. We can see on the ride over here, someone is having a go on the ride, and I tell you what, I think that's Devil's Armpit, who was at the Spa circuit for the track guide there, but I totally missed him. So he's made it to Japan, he's on the ride to get a good view of the guide. So thank you for that one, Devils. Okay, so Casino Triangle then, last time flat out on this guide lap. I mean, this has become quite a long guide, that's because I'm waffling on a lot. And that's where the kick would come. Okay, so that's the guide lap done. So now we'll have a look at if you ignore everything I say in late break, or don't close the DRS. There we go. Now I've managed to save it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone will be able to. Okay, so balls up turn 1 and 2, we're now wide at turn 3. We're wide after turn 4. We're going to be even wider now at turn 5. We've had to slow down to 3rd gear to recover the car, and that's what I'm on about. The smallest mistake becomes a big mistake, and if I hadn't have gone down to 3rd gear, I wouldn't have made it round Dunlop. Okay, flat out 7th gear, we've cut the corner. It may not have seemed like it, but let's just have a little look, shall we? It doesn't look like much, but you know what? Those 2 wheels are off the track, and so is the front one. So that's 3 wheels off the road, and in front row racing, we say you've got to have 2 wheels on the track. And if you look there, all 4 are off the road. So that's actually cutting the corner, and that's what I'm on about. To take it flat out in 7th, you either need high aeros or cut the corner, and we don't want you cutting the corner. Okay, braking slightly too late for the second Degna, so we've had to go down to 2nd gear instead of 3rd and powering through. The hairpin, brake late, dip to wheel on the grass, and we lock it up. You don't want to brake too late there. If you're going to overtake someone there, be careful as well. It gets slippy up the inside. Okay, the R200 heading up to Spoon. We're going to ignore the 100 metre marker board, and it's too late. Now we're losing time, we're losing speed, we're trying to get it back, and it's not working. Now we're going to be slow all the way down this curvy straight and slow around the R130. Never should have a problem here, although into the Casino Triangle we're going to brake late about 60 metres, and it is too late. And if you do that, use this service road like this, get it slowed down, and you'll see we've come back on the track with plenty enough space over here for cars to carry on. Now I'm pointing this out for a reason. That's because most people would probably get to this point and just go straight on. Don't, because you've no idea where the car's going to go. You're going to dirty up your tyres, you're probably going to spin it, and you're probably going to get a penalty. So use the service road. Slow it down, plenty of room here. If somebody hits you when you're at this point of the track, they've taken the corner wrong, and I would say it's not necessarily your fault if you do it like I have. There's more than enough room over there. You're more likely to get a penalty for just cutting the corner if you get it wrong there. Anyway, use the service roads. Okay, now then, on to having a look at being off the racing line. So if you're going to go for overtakes, brake at my normal points or deactivate your DRS, but go down extra gears or slow it down more. We have had to slow it down more, and we've still used all of the road. Overtaking through here, it's not easy to do because you're going to be going slow. Once you're offline here, you're going to be always offline. I'm not saying don't overtake through here, but it may be better to wait, or just pressure the other person into making a mistake and going off at Dunlop. Okay, Degnas, you don't really want to be offline heading into here. You're going to have to go down to at least 5th gear. Good chance you're going to knock someone off the road if they're on the left of you. 2nd gear needed for Degna 2 and very, very slow on the exit. If You're going to go up the inside of the hairpin. You're probably going to need first gear, and be careful, it's tight, it's slippy, and you may lock up under brakes. The R200, you could go side by side around here, but it can get a bit tricky. But spoon, be careful if you're going up the inside. You're going to have to go down a third at least for that third part, and very, very careful on the second one, because it's going to want to send you wide because of the tight entry. Okay, the R130, two cars can go side by side here. Takes this car to have to turn more, and the car on the right to give him room. Casino, everyone's going to have a go at some point, but be careful. Again, it's slippy offline there. Okay, now that we've had a look at that, we'll have another look at being back on the racing line. We'll probably make a few mistakes on this lap. From what I can remember, I do. Yes, I'm offline slightly through the chicanes, but listen to how slow it feels, or it seems I have to go, and I'm literally, it's all because I missed this first apex a little bit. I've had to turn it in tight for that one, and I've had to slow it down more than I wanted for this one. Minute differences make, that's the differences in time. Okay. Degna 1, no problem. Degna 2, no problem. On the power and drive away. The hairpin, if you're on a wheel, make sure you don't use too much throttle on the exit here. You'll just light up the rears, and the more you do that in a race, the more it's going to cost you on your tyre wear. Spoon, the first part of spoon is one of those, the temptation is always to go faster through this first bit. More than likely it's going to cost you every single time though. What's more important is taking this part right, because this gives you the speed down this straight. And that can be the difference between overtaking someone or being overtaken or not being overtaken. The R130, easy corner, and into casino. Brake at the 100, use the curb, and be careful, because the car is going to want to slide away. Okay. Now we're going to have a look at the pit. Well, I've stopped it a bit early. We're going to have a look at ETLs, exceeding track limits, and the pit entry, or the pit exit and the pit entry. Now the pit exit at Japan, it's a very, very simple one. I mentioned it at the start. This white line here is still pit lane. Do not cross this white line. When you get to the end of this line, this is the pit exit. You can now join racetrack. It's not a difficult pit exit, but still one that some people may struggle with. Okay, so exceeding track limits. Stuff we don't want to see people doing, so basically cutting corners or extending the circuit. Now it's easily done around here, but if you do it, just back off, negate any advantage you get. Now I'm not doing this at full speed, but I don't want to, because I don't like the idea of cutting corners, so we don't want to see people doing any of this kind of stuff, trying to gain advantages. Good luck running wide there though, I mentioned it earlier, it will end up in a big crash. Now the Degna, yes, I mentioned it earlier, it may not have looked like a corner cut, but it was. And this one is similar as well. And the simplest way to look at it is, if both of your front wheels are the wrong side of the white line, then you've got 3 wheels off the track. So after this corner, you should be backing off to negate any advantage you've gained, and making it clear to the stewards that you're not gaining an advantage. In Degna 2, I know people have done this before. I've even seen people cut the corner so much they've wiped out that Pirelli sign. We don't want to be seeing that. And at the hairpin, if you take it like this, you're just going to get yourself into a whole world of trouble, really. At the end of the day, race cars go on the racetrack. The only time they shouldn't be on racetrack is if they're crashing or doing donuts to show off because they've just won a race. Okay, spoon, we don't want to see people cutting the corner. Good luck going wide though, it's going to hurt you more than anything. But down here, I mean, I'd probably be tempted to say running wide there is going to hurt you as well. The R130, you should never really be cutting this corner. It's not one that needs to be. If you're overtaking someone, you're up the inside, you still don't need to cut it. If the car on the right of you hits you, it's their fault. Okay, and this corner, if you hear that noise, you've cut the corner. And that noise was the sound of the cone being knocked over. If you're hitting cone through this corner, you're cutting the corner by a mile. And I'm not just talking a little bit. We're talking, there's at least a tyre's width between your rear tyre and the edge of the track. So this is a massive corner cut as far as I'm concerned. It's not difficult to keep two wheels on the road here. It's not difficult at all. So keep two wheels on the road. And the same goes for this corner. It's not hard to keep two wheels on the road. Okay, pit entry is one of the, I mean, I said Monza was one of the easiest, but to be honest, I think this might be. You got a cone and you got a white line. That there is your pit entry. If you hit that cone, you're getting the entry wrong, you could get yourself a penalty. What I will say though is, if you've got cars near you on track and you're on the left and there's a car here, if you just swing it for the pits and this car's going straight on, you're at fault, not this car. They do not have to back off to let you in the pits. If you're going to go from the left side of the track to the pit lane, you need to make sure it's clear to do so. Okay, that's it. Track guide is complete. It's become another long one, a bit like Singapore, but that's because Singapore was such a pain in the backside that it was a long one, and this one I've actually enjoyed doing. As I mentioned early on, the guides are aimed more to help people who are struggling on a track or a corner than to aid those people who are already supposedly quick. Now we have got track guides for all of the circuits up to Japan, and I will get the next 5, I think it is, done as soon as possible, Russia being the next one, and I'll admit, not one I'm overly looking forward to. I've not done a hell of a lot of laps around there, but I'll get a bit of practice in. I'll see what I think of it. Let's see how we get on. Obviously we've learned a lot about these cars and how they need to be driven, set up, since we first got the game and first drove around that track, so probably find that it's not as bad now as it was when we first got the game. If anyone does have any questions about what they see in the track guides, feel free to ask. Come and find Front Row Racing on Facebook. I think we may have some spaces in our leagues at the moment, but obviously we are getting to the final races in our leagues. We've got 3 of them: World Championship, World Series and World Trophy, and they're all getting to the final stages of the championships now, with all of them still up for grabs as well. But if you do want to join the league on this gen or next gen, feel free to contact Front Row Racing on Facebook. Like and share the videos, and if these have helped, tell your mates, or don't, so that you get the advantage, but at least share it to other people. Okay, he's been Ted Kravsticks. I've been Front Row Racing DP. Thanks for watching, and we hope this has helped.